Moon Knight Episode 5, Mark's childhood, Stephen's sacrifice, the gentle knight has disappeared. The story goes on. Mark and Stephen were taken aback after seeing the hippopotamus goddess. Mark sat in front of the high priestess in a flash, with a few scars on his face. He told Mark that they were now located in a medical facility in Chicago, not in Egypt. Your mind is sometimes awake and sometimes not. Everything just now is your own fantasy. And bluntly said that only this hippopotamus goddess could break the barrier between him and Stephen. Before that, Mark also mentioned the little boy with the high priest. The high priestess wanted to know the secret of that little boy. But as soon as Mark heard about the little boy, he started to freak out. He was just about to grab the crystal tower on the table to do something about it when he was caught by two guards in a grip. With a sedative shot into his neck, Mark was suddenly back in the hallway.
Oh man, wow, these meds are really amazing.
Is he always so intense?
To him, yeah, pretty much.
So are you two like twins?
No. Yes, sort of.
The hippopotamus confirmed the identity of the two men and then took out the reading book to say welcome to Duat. Duat is one of the underworlds of Egypt. Stephen suddenly understood that the hippopotamus was Taweret, the guardian goddess of women. But Mark couldn't believe his eyes when he heard such a ridiculous statement and thought he was crazy for a while. The high priest is also the director of this mental hospital, saying that a group of mental patients are behind these doors.
Oh my god! Oh my god! What is this? This is the underworld. I'm not crazy.
Mark became extremely happy after knowing that he was not crazy but just dead. Taweret's mission is to take them to paradise. If their hearts pass the scale of judgment, they can stay in that world forever. If they don't pass, they will be thrown off the ship and frozen in the desert forever. With that said, Taweret put his hand into their chests, removed their hearts and placed them on the scale. But the accident happened suddenly. The scale began to shake constantly, a situation that even Taweret was unaware of. Taweret picked up the heart and looked at it, and it turned out to be a problem with the two hearts. Both hearts seemed incomplete. He told the two men that their souls would be frozen in the sand if the scales were not balanced. To get through paradise safely, they can't hide anything from each other. The ship behind them carries all their memories, and Taweret suggests that they go in and see the truth in each other. The scale must stop shaking before reaching paradise. So Mark and Stephen went back to the mental hospital again to find answers. They set out to find the memories that were hidden from them. Each room held different memories. The first room was Stephen's first transformation. In the second room were Stephen and Khonsu changing the stars. Stephen arrives at the third room. He has no memory of what he is seeing. Mark said perfunctorily that it was just an ordinary street. Suddenly a scream caught their attention. They immediately rushed to the room and found it filled with the people Mark had killed. These dead people are all heinous criminals, all from around the world. Mark confessed everything to Stephen. The scale is slowly stopping at this point. Just then, the little boy in the room caught Stephen's attention.
Why is there a child in a room filled with people that you've killed? Steve, don't go near him.
The boy turns tail. Stephen followed him. Mark got nervous suddenly. He didn't want Stephen near the boy. Stephen followed the boy into a room and shut the door against Mark. Never thought this to be the scene of his childhood. A spacious backyard, a beautiful young mother, and a brother he had never seen before. The two brothers took advantage of their mother's cooking and decided to sneak out to play. But it started heavy raining when they didn't get very far. The brother wanted to go back immediately, but Mark told the brother not to be afraid. The two brothers went into a cave, and Stephen followed them. He just went in, and the two brothers suddenly disappeared. A large amount of rainwater poured into the cave. Suddenly there was a distant cry for help from the two brothers. Mark also became very nervous. He reassured himself that it was just a memory. Suddenly the room changed into another sight. He pushed the door open and walked in. It turned out to be his brother's funeral. The heartbroken mother was crying and chanting for her brother to come back. At that moment, young Mark came out from upstairs. The angry mother began to accuse him.
Your fault! This is all your fault!
It turns out that this room is a memory of Mark's childhood. His mother believes that Mark has held a grudge against his brother since his brother was born because he was no longer loved by his parents. His mother blamed him for his brother's death and abused him from time to time. Just as Stephen tried to enter the last room, Mark yanked him out. They went back to the street, just in time to meet his father as he said goodbye to Mark. Curious, Stephen tried to find out what was going on but was pushed out by Mark. Unexpectedly the two came to a desert, which was full of corpses. Stephen found Layla's father among the corpses. Mark saw this and explained that he was discharged from the military. He didn't have many options after that, so he went work for his old CO bushman. He has been a mercenary ever since. When given a mission to raid an Egyptian tomb, the commander changed his mind and killed all the witnesses. Mark not only didn't help them escape, but he was also seriously wounded. He struggled to crawl under Khonsu's statue, and in desperation, Mark tried to suicide. Suddenly a strange sound is heard.
What a waste. I am the god Khonshu, in search of a warrior.
Khonsu told Mark that if you wanted to live, you would give me your body, and take revenge on those evil people for me. At this point, Mark had no choice but to agree. From then on, Moon Knight was born.
As my Moon Knight.
After Stephen learned where Moon Knight came from, they went back to Taweret's boat. Countless unbalanced souls are judged prematurely and sink into the sand. Not even Taweret has ever seen this sight. Stephen is desperate to return to Earth. He begged Taweret to send them back and sent a message to Layla to save Khonsu. But Taweret said that even if you could go back to Earth now, you would be nothing but a corpse. But Stephen was desperate to get back. Taweret suddenly thought of a way to get back through Osiris Gate. That was the only way to get back. She walked straight forward and turned the ship around.
Get back inside! You don't have long! Get those scales balanced!
They are back in the mental hospital. Stephen wants to know the secret of the last room, but Mark hurriedly prevents him from entering, saying that the room's contents do not make any sense. The persistent Stephen wanted to find out what was going on, and Mark began to freak out when he couldn't explain, slapping his head hard. Suddenly back to the high priest again, the high priest comforted Mark, expressing great sympathy for his experience and asking him a serious question.
Do you think you created Stephen to hide from all the awful things you feel you've done in your life? Or do you think Stephen created Mark?
Mark felt he looked overwhelmed by the high priestess' questions. So they went to that last room, and Mark decided to open up to Stephen. Young Mark cowered on the floor in fear, and the sound of his mother's knocking kept coming from outside the door. Young Mark was terrified. Under tremendous psychological pressure, he split his second personality. Stephen saw the situation and was sure that he was Mark's creation to escape from his mistakes in his life. The name Stephen is from the hero of Mark's favorite movie, Tomb Raider. Stephen was still in shock when his mother broke in at the door. Mark saw the situation and rushed to take Stephen out. Stephen then punched Mark. He hated Mark for using him as a tool to relieve stress. But Mark thought he could live a joyful life as long as he didn't have these painful memories. Mark accidentally revealed that his mother had died long ago during the argument. Stephen was utterly devastated when he heard this, not realizing that the mother he once loved was long gone. He couldn't accept this fact. It turned out that behind the third door was his mother's funeral. Due to the guilt of his brother's death, Mark could only stand outside the window and look at it from afar and could only drink away his sorrows. It was excruciating inside. While walking and crying. In pain, he awakened Stephen's personality. Stephen took out his cell phone to call his mother to escape the fact that his mother had died, but the call did not go through. As far as Stephen could remember, his mother had always loved him. From this point on, the lives of the two personalities began to merge. Stephen forgave Mark after he figured everything out. The two returned to the boat again. They had arrived at Earth's doorstep, but the scale was still unbalanced. Suddenly a bizarre undead crept up, all from Duat. A group of undead was ready to take the two off into the desert. Mark stood in front of Stephen and was prepared to fight with the undead alone. But the undead was agile and numerous, and their bodies were made of sand. Mark was soon knocked to the ground. As the two undead were about to take Mark, Stephen exploded. Suddenly an undead grabbed Mark from behind. Stephen rushed to save Mark, but he and the undead fell into the desert together. Stephen, the gentleman knight, disappeared. At the same time, The heaven of justice is finally balanced. A moment later, Mark came to a wheat field, all of which seemed to suggest that he had returned to Earth.